Is there an artist we love more than Stevie Nicks? It's 1 o'clock. Welcome to the Voice of Laguna, an absolutely picturesque and spectacular day along the Southern California coastline. Delighted that you're with us. Wherever you happen to be listening to us from across the globe, we're broadcasting live from this perfect city of Laguna Beach, California, and welcome to the program. We've been talking about it for a while. We are delighted that it's finally here. The author of Liverpool Bank Robber to Hollywood Butler, Book 2. We had him here for Book 1, Terry Mugen in studio with us. Terry, a very good morning to you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for having me, Ed. It's been a pleasure to come today, and thank you.
It's a blast to have you here. I had talked. We spoke when you released the first book. We had you on, and it was a fascinating story and a great read. I like the second book even more.
Thank you.
It's so true. It is, and I had a tough time explaining why, but it was also tough putting it down evenings when I was reading it. You gave it to me about a week ago, and it's a tough book to put down. Great stories and perfectly told.
Yes, it took me about a year to write it. The first book that I wrote, I just tell the outline of the stories, and it goes in and out. So I decided that I would really go into depth and tell the real stories of the stars and go into some of the shenanigans that we did in England. And one of the reasons why is to bring everybody back to life. Marlon Brando, Joan Rivers, God bless all of them, and Father Fawcett, and also the gangsters who I hung out with in a place in Huyton, which was notorious, and unfortunately they're all dead now.
Well, yeah, it's funny you say that, because yes, as much as I love knowing, you don't have to worry about that. You're in good distance and all that stuff. As much as I love knowing about the Farrah Fawcetts and the Marlon Brandos, and these are fascinating stories. The stories of, for instance, Soho Street, where so many gangsters and robbers lived, seemed to attract a criminal element. And I'm curious as to, did they compete against each other as criminals for maybe a bank job here or an armored car job there? Or were they all cohesive?
Well, it's funny. Thanks for that question. There's a special, I would say, society in the 60s when we grew up in Soho Street in the inner city of Liverpool. Society was failing us at the time, coming out of the war.
Right.
And we were just left, and we were left in the tenement apartments we were just left alone. And so our objective was, we would go on the streets and we'd meet kids who were just born tough Irish kids.
Right. So
there was a gang of us. There was Osty McCormick, Dennis Kelly, there was Philip Shields, Tommy Gilday, and myself. And then there would be rival gangs.
Right.
However, I can honestly say today, there was no tougher mob than the Huyton mob, which I got involved with later. And then the likes of Dennis Kelly, he killed a man.
Okay.
We were going into a club one night, and there was bouncers that stopped us, and there was an argument. We were too tough for them. Pulls a knife out and he kills them.
Okay. When you say the Huyton mob, that is what you refer to in the book as the Liverpool Mafia?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they were like the most notorious bank robbers in history in Liverpool.
Right.
And I was in Borstal and detention. I was incarcerated with some of them. And when I come out, I got to know them, and then when I go on the QE2, I still knew them.
Right.
And they were drawing me in it.
Right.
I was getting drawn in at the time to do some moves with them, but they were the toughest. There's no two ways about it. And later on in life, they were hijacking. When I left England in 1980, they hijacked a warehouse for the Royal Mail, where they would, all the money, there was 5 million in there, the police were waiting for them, and they shot them and nearly killed all of them. I actually would have been with them, but I escaped.
You got lucky.
I escaped.
There's how much luck is involved in your being right here today?
I think, honestly, it's beautiful. I think I'd put it down to God Almighty. being in that in the police station that night,
Right.
and the sergeant says, "Hold on a minute, you got to let him go. There's a strike." And I come out, and I always remember what Elizabeth Taylor told me: "Go to Hollywood." And the next morning, I'm on a plane at 8 o'clock in the morning, flying out to Los Angeles.
You weren't supposed to leave the country.
No.
Right. The judge had ordered you to stay in the country,
yeah.
and you weren't supposed to leave. But the next thing, boom, you're gone.
I was gone.
So I want to refresh our audience's memory about our first conversation and the incredible abuse that you suffered as a child and a teenager. Touch on that for just a moment, if you would.
Well, as I say, you know, when you're growing up in Soho Street and in the inner city in Scotland Road, you know, we did petty crime.
Right.
So the laws then, they had to take it into care, and they had these big homes, and they were unqualified for the job. So basically, I call them monster houses.
Right.
And them monsters that was where the abuse kicked in.
Right.
And we were all abused, getting beat up, getting mishandled, getting up in the night, which led to hypervigilance, anxiety, depression.
Right.
And most of all, the worst thing from a lot of the children was suicide.
Right. Right. And eventually, much later, you were able to see justice being brought to one of these abusers.
Yeah, we went, and I heard that there was a lawsuit against the Catholic Church.
Right.
So I was the lead man, and I joined it. And I was with an Operation Care in Britain, a police unit, and they were delighted with me, the way I'd survived.
Right.
And basically, here I am now, helping them,
Right.
going after the abusers in the home.
Right.
But then when I was in 1967, when I was sentenced to 12 years in them homes, most of the children didn't have the story. They were either dead, they were in jail, and then here I was educating myself in America, and I'd survived.
Right.
And I went back, and I had all the evidence, because I actually documented the evidence in Beverly Hills in St. Joseph's Hospital, and I documented it with psychiatrists, my mental health in Beverly Hills, because I was suffering at the time.
Of course. Of course.
And then I was also suffering of being on the lam.
British authorities wanted to put you away in something called the Rampton Hospital for the criminally insane.
Yeah, I went to Rampton Hospital to get evaluated,
Okay.
to sit in front of three psychiatrists for my case.
Can I ask you a question? So on the drive there, you're driving to the hospital, or you're on the bus, or however it is you got there. Were you thinking of all the homes that you'd been in that had abused you?
Yeah.
Okay. And what kind of trepidation did that make you feel? That had to...
Well, you know, Ed, I was so happy that in 1981 in St. John's Hospital on 14th Street in Santa Monica, I recorded everything.
Okay.
And I explained to the doctors about my life. And I explained to a Dr. Ralph Obler in Beverly Hills, because I had hypervigilance anxiety. And so when I got to Rampton, there was 3 psychiatrists. And I thought, I'm not going to let them control the situation.
Right.
And I asked one of the psychiatrists, Dr. Millen, what day is it today? And what year is it? And he said, we're in 1997, June. I said, well, let's, in your file in 1981, you have a report in 1981 from Dr. Messina. And it was documented, so I was basically putting them on the spot, saying, look, I haven't just come here today to tell the story, to look for compensation, because there was no compensation in the world for a child's brain to be damaged.
Right. Here's the proof positive of that.
Is the proof.
Right.
So that lawsuit was the biggest lawsuit in history. And what they were looking for was a personality disorder, which I didn't have. Right. They actually seen the opposite to me, and seen how smart I was.
And how well prepared you were.
What they couldn't see behind the mask was the PTSD.
Right.
And I actually get it out of them, the diagnosis. Right. And as I walk out, they said, oh yeah, it's PTSD.
One of the things that I found beautifully told in this book are how you describe the characters in your life, and you give us great detail on each of them. I think I may have found the reason I love this book so much. The great detail of all of the characters. There was a guy who's only 5'8", named Joey Wright.
Yes.
Crazy Joey.
Crazy Joey.
Tell us about Crazy Joey a little bit.
Well, I met Joey in Soho Street.
Okay.
And he was part of. He was actually what we started the story with in the beginning. He was a rival gang member.
Okay.
So one night, we beat his friend up, me and my friends, and we on the street.
Okay.
And because he wanted to muscle in on the gang, which was impossible, because we stayed in the gang. You couldn't get in the gang because we didn't trust no one. Because when we were little kids from age 8, we found the police corrupt by society,
Right.
and the police knew our name before they knew our face, and then they eventually they would put the face to the name,
Right.
because we were so well known. Joey was a tough guy, and then he muscled in on us, so we took him because he was tough, and he had what you call bottle. He was game,
Okay.
and we tested him to do a job, a bank job. Actually, it was in Soho Street, and he was successful. And then he wanted to come back at us again. But also, what we didn't know about Joey is that he was a police informer with a Detective Sergeant Smith just outside Soho Street. And he would go back and give all the information. Teddy Mugan's doing this, Philip Shields is doing this.
Right.
And they had it all logged.
And the police would leave him alone.
And
then come after you for the things that you guys were doing.
yeah.
Right.
And then what happened is we brought him in, and then me and Billy and Bobby Hughes, we do a job in the city centre, and Joey is driving the van,
Right.
and there's an ambush, and they come after us, and they block the city off, and we get caught.
Okay.
And then we go into custody, and there's no way that you're going to get bail on a serious nature of the case.
Right.
And I'm sitting in the cell with Joey, and he says to me, he said, "Terry, we're going to get out on bail." I said, "How?" And he said, "Well, the Detective Smith." I said, "Yeah, he used to follow me. He had me under surveillance."
Right.
He said, "He's a friend of mine." So we go to court,
Right.
and there's no police detectives there to oppose the bail.
Right.
So they put us back in custody for 5 hours, and the magistrate said, "We can't let you out for the serious nature of the case."
Right.
So what happened is he threw his hands up and he had to let us out.
Right.
And then I realised that Joey was a snitch.
Right.
And then...
Did he ever get his comeuppance for being a snitch?
No, yes, he was. He was going to get it. After 10 years, I'd spoke to him on the phone. Our trial had started for that case.
Right.
And I was actually in a park in Beverly Hills a year later. And I was actually working for Max Factor. And I'd go to the local phone and I'd call them, and the trial had started. And they took the glass off the guards and put it on our clothes. So I told them, "Joey, you got to listen to me. You got to get 2 people, Alan and John, and you have to follow members of the jury home tonight and find out where they live. And then the next night, you follow them the next night. And then the next night you get on the bus and sit behind them, and then you tell them, please make sure you come in with a not guilty. We know where you live and we know where your children go to school." So basically, at the following week, they came in, and the evidence that they had against us was overwhelming.
Right.
They had the box, they had the money when they ambushed us. They had the forensic in the van.
Right.
They had the fingerprints.
They had you.
Yeah.
They had you tied.
And I still denied it.
Right.
So I told Joey, and he went, "Teddy, it's a great idea." So basically, after a week, they came in with a not guilty. So it was called Shadow on the Jury.
Right.
And that's in the next book.
Okay, and we will talk about the next. I cannot wait till to reveal a little bit about what you've
So
what you've
then
written
what
for your next
happened
book.
is I decided to go home
Right.
and visit Liverpool after 10 years. And I went to some solicitors, and they did background checks on me, and they came back and they said there's no warrants. I was in the clear.
A solicitor for the United States is a lawyer.
Yeah, as a lawyer.
Right.
Yeah. So then the two guys on the ambush got away with it.
Right.
So they had gone into the field of importation of drugs. So Joey was making millions. So I go to the house to see these two guys, and they get a shotgun and they get a handgun, and they decide that they're going to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And they want me with them. So I decided, no, that would be absolutely impossible. I can't do that.
Right.
So I came up with an idea that we would tax him, which would be anywhere from 150,000 to 250,000. And if he didn't pay us, he would be killed. And he did pay us.
Okay.
And then he dropped the money off in a car in the street, and we shared that. We got 50,000 each. A month later, his son was driving on the outskirts of Liverpool, and a gunman pulled up and killed him. And his son was named Mickey Wright. He was killed.
Okay.
And then a couple of months later, Joey went to Scotland, and he got caught with £3 million worth of heroin, and the judge gave him and his co-defendants 21 years each.
Okay.
And then Joey came out. He was an alcoholic, and he would die.
Okay.
And that was the end of Joey Wright.
Which brings me to one of the lines that is unforgettable in this book, and you write that grief is the price we pay
For crimes.
for crimes.
Yeah, I did that on three of my friends. Yeah, one was Franny Jones as a child,
Right.
and one was Eddie Langshaw,
Right.
and the other one was David Brooks. That society that we never had a chance, and we were victims of society. And then them three men would die for the crimes. And one, Eddie Langshaw,
Right.
would commit suicide in prison.
Let's talk about the QE2 for a moment. That you were able to get on the QE2 as a server,
At first I was a chef.
Okay, as a chef, and then you ended up being a server or butler or cabin steward, as we call them.
So I'd been sentenced to 12 years
Right.
in approved schools. I'd been sentenced to detention, and I'd been sentenced to a very prison called Everthorpe Borstal, which was Scum, which the worst movie in the world was made from that.
Okay.
And a guy called Ray Winston, he played the part
Okay.
in Scum.
Okay.
And they did that film, and it was the worst. It was banned actually by the BBC, but then it was made again later on in life, and they portray us in that movie. And I came out. I'd done probably a total of 18 years, so I'd lost all my youth. I was 19 at the time, and my brother Alan, God bless his soul, he's not with us today. I went on the QE2 as a specialist cook.
Okay.
And then from there I moved over to the hotel department as a waiter, and then eventually I moved into the penthouses on the QE2.
At what point did the authorities approach you about a bomb scare?
Well, in 1975, that was in 75, but while I was on the QE2, I still had the tendencies to steal, and one of the tendencies was, when I was looking after Elizabeth Taylor, to steal all her diamonds.
Okay. To steal her diamonds?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I didn't realize at the time that redemption was setting in my brain,
Right.
because I was a product of a criminal of society.
Right.
But then I was exposing my brain, the other side of my brain was exposing itself to the real world, this beauty
Right.
of life that I had never seen in my life before. And this was the real life. And then I got to know her, and I told her a little bit about my life, and I thought, no, I can't steal them diamonds.
That is to me, in reading that, that's a fascinating turn on a dime. It really is. It is stepping on a dime and letting that dime turn you. You did that on your own.
Yes. And because I think that was because basically I'd matured.
Right.
And the person that I was when I was young was not me.
Right.
So this real person inside me was coming out.
Right.
That was the real person.
Tell us a little bit about Elizabeth Taylor.
Well, she was beautiful, and she used to just come out. Being a butler, you can't approach these people. You've got to keep your distance.
Right.
You're a servant, and you have to be honourable, and it's hard when you're in front of them.
I noticed that as I read through this, even in your life of crime, you had a sense of honor.
Yes.
Always carried that sense of honor with you.
Yeah, we did that. Even later on after the QE2. But going back to the QE2, there was the Irish Republican Army on there, and I was drinking with them.
Right.
So they were going to blow the ship up on Guy Fawkes Night on the 5th of November, 1978.
The IRA,
the Irish Republican
big
Army.
news here during the tumult in Beirut, and they were everywhere. So yes.
So it's well documented.
Right.
It's very well documented in the news. So they're looking at me thinking, hold on a minute, where's this guy coming from? He's on the ship. He's drinking with the IRA. He's been in jail. There's certain things that had happened on the ship, like the wages.
Okay.
All the wages that came on the ship that went missing.
Okay.
In 19...
And did you have anything to do with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was me and another guy.
Okay.
Which we couldn't resist it.
Right.
It was a lot of cash.
Right.
And also then I got involved with the manager of the jewellers on the ship.
Right.
She was the manager of the jewellers. She was absolutely gorgeous. She was like Elizabeth Taylor. So she had a crush on me.
So just to describe it for the audience, the Queen Elizabeth II, the ship you were on, had like a jewelry store.
Yeah, it was Harrods Jewellers.
Okay, so it was Harrods.
Yeah, all the jewels, because we had in 1977, we had the Queen's Jubilee.
Okay.
So they brought all the jewels on.
Okay.
And they were going to sell them in the jewellers.
And when the agents first approached you about a bomb scare, you thought it was over the jewelry.
Yes.
Okay.
And the jewelry, what would happen, it's in the next book, and that book will be called The Diamond Heist on the QE2.
Okay.
That's in the third book.
Okay.
And it's about the girl who falls in love with me, but I don't fall in love with her. I fell in love with the jewellers, and all the diamonds go missing.
Right.
And it's a long story. It's a hell of a long, it's about 40 pages in the chapter, how I wrote it. And the ship actually goes into a storm, and I'm doing the captain's party, and she's helping me. So that when the ship goes into the storm that night, I get up early hours in the morning, and all the displays and all the ship is going backwards 12 hours.
Right.
The waves are 60 to 90 feet. And
so the currents are pushing the ship back
12 hours.
Right.
And all the glass is smashed in the jewellers because it was fragile. There's no cameras.
Right.
And we just help ourselves. Now in that story, I tell a little bit about it in the first book, but where it came to light was when we went to England 2 years ago. A guy picked me up in London in a Range Rover. I told my daughter who he was, and he was a waiter on the QE2.
Right.
So we went to a soccer game in Liverpool, and then the next day we went out for dinner, and my daughter had had a few drinks, and she turned round to the guy and said to him, "Stephen, tell us about the diamond heist on the QE2.
Right.
And he looked at me, and he said, "Did you tell anyone?" And I said, "No," but she knew.
Right.
And I said, "I'm putting it in the second book." And he said to me, "No, don't do that." He said, put that's a story on its own in the third book, the diamond heist on the QE2.
Right. How tough is it to fence diamonds?
Well, at the time it was easy because we had, in the first book, there's a guy called Ronnie Gibbons. He did the Brinks job in New York.
Right.
And he was running a bar called the Dubliner, where I had took Anne to, the manager.
Right.
And Stephen had actually come with us. And that was the plot, to ask Ronnie a month before, if we do the diamond heist, can you sell the diamonds in New York? And Ronnie was with the mafia in New York.
Right.
And eventually when we got the diamonds, he would sell them. And then later on, he would do the Brinks job.
So I'm curious as to, okay, you're on a ship that no one can come on, no one can go off. You steal the diamonds, and you also stole the money for the wages. How does that investigation look? Shouldn't the captain come to every single person that works on the ship?
Not necessarily, no, because we're in the middle of a storm. The biggest storm, it's 1,300 miles long.
Right.
The waves are 90. Well, would actually.
Well, I know that's the actual robbery itself,
Yeah.
but I mean,
So
afterwards they have to understand. Well, the glass is broken, the diamonds are gone. We're still on the ship. The storm is over.
Well, what happened was when we going back to England, the captain, we were doing the captain's party, and Anne had said to the captain, "You know, Captain, somebody stole the diamonds."
Right.
And they think that the passengers may have picked them up.
There we go.
And the captain said, "No, I don't think so." He said, "The police are coming on the ship when we get to Southampton." And then I was arrested.
All right. Never having admitted to it, though.
No, I was under questioning for 12 hours. So never admitted anything in my life. And even when I was 8 years of age, I know that they would say, "Okay, we're going to put you in the cell. Come on, Terry, it's easy if you tell us the story now and we'll let you go." And it was the same situation.
Right.
I knew they had nothing. They put me in a cell, and then eventually I was released.
I want to go back to the ship for a moment and talk about Elizabeth Taylor and her advice to you.
Well, her advice was I would save her at night when she was lonely, when Richard was gambling in the casino, and she'd have a couple of drinks and I'd sit with her and we'd just talk. Now, in that moment, you don't realise you're just another kid in the world. It was the same as Beverly Hills, all the stars I worked for.
Right.
They were just people to me.
Right.
And
we're going to talk about a few of those in just a moment.
yeah,
but please
so
tell us.
what she did, she said, you should be an actor and go to New York and your life. And I told her I had a bad life, and she said, "Oh no, you need to stay away from crime." And then here I am. She didn't know that what was on my mind was her diamonds.
You were looking at her diamonds, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I seen the diamonds all there,
Right.
and I would never touch them. And them, but the Queen's Jubilee diamonds was like, it was a hell of a story.
So
in the middle of a storm.
I'm going to fast forward, and I'll jump around a little bit here, if that's all right with you. Part of the redemption, part of the living the good life, was when you did become a butler for a lot of celebrities here in Southern California and Hollywood. Marlon Brando is a fascinating story.
Yeah.
Tell us about meeting Marlon. And Dora is the same person who connected you with all of these celebrities.
Dora Weaney was the biggest international agency in the world.
Okay.
So how I met Brando was, I'd gone to Joan's house, Joan Rivers,
Right.
and there was a party that they were having the following month for Sir Laurence Olivier, and she was dying to get me as the English butler. Now, she was married to a guy called Edgar Rosenberg.
Everybody heard Edgar in her set. Her comedy was based around her husband, Edgar.
Now, so I'm oblivious to this because I'm not educated in this world. And it wasn't until later on in life I realised. And Edgar begged me to come to the house because he knew my expertise of the QE2,
Right.
the way I'd been trained.
Right.
So you couldn't get no high class than that.
Right.
So, behold, who shows up at the door for dinner is Marlon Brando. Because Marlon Brando was friends with Sir Laurence Olivier and Edgar Rosenberg. So I would take care of him for about 3 or 4 months. And then I always asked Sir Laurence Olivier, who's the greatest actor? And he said, Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
So I left. And then I get another call. Terry, you got to come in. And I'm running on the beach every day in Malibu. I'm working 4 months a year.
Right.
And I was making more money in 4 months than 12 months.
Right.
So I just trying to enjoy my life,
Right.
in Santa Monica. And he said, Terry, we've got this guy wants you. So I go to Beverly Hills. I sit outside the Beverly Wilshire. I have a cup of coffee and I'm just sitting there watching everything. And then I walk down to the agency and she said, Marlon Brando wants you. And she was like, are you happy? I said, no.
Right.
Why should I be? Because my mind was haunted from the past.
Right. Were you afraid at any point that you would want to steal from these celebrities? Or was that done with? You knew that if you were going to be their butler, you were going to be...
Well, in the first book, I had been working for Frederick Wiseman, who was a billionaire.
Right.
And his safe was open one night.
Right.
And there was about $250,000 in jewels. And there was 150,000 in money. But so what I thought to myself was, this man's given me a job. I fly in a $50 million jet. I live in a $40 million home.
Right.
I drive a Bentley. Why would I steal from somebody? So that's when all the redemption was setting in.
Right.
It was setting in then.
And at Marlon Brando's place, there was not a lot of opulence. It was kind of a dusty, unkempt home, right?
Yeah. So he lived on Mulholland Drive. His house was unkept. He was nice. I just go to curriculum for him, right. And then I would sit with him now and again. One of the great stories was he told me that Robert Evans was coming for lunch.
Paramount, former head of Paramount.
Now I'd had an interview with him,
right?
And I told him, and he went, "Really?" So here you've got.
So you interviewed with Robert Evans before you met before you went and worked for Marlon Brando.
Yes.
To be a butler or a chef for him, right?
But I was infuriated.
Right.
I had an inferiority complex because I didn't think I was good enough.
Right.
But I was good enough with all the skills.
Right.
But I wasn't. I was showing them, but I didn't think I was good enough.
Right.
And I just had this thing because Robert Evans's Butler was on the front of a magazine, and I couldn't do that. But really, I could.
Right.
And I didn't take the job. So then, eventually, Marlon Brando's having lunch, and Robert Evans shows up. And I did say hello to him. But the most beautiful thing was you've got Marlon Brando, Robert Evans of Paramount, and here I am in my life going back as a bank robber, notorious, serving The Godfather, and then serving Robert Evans.
Right.
So could you imagine that scene in a movie that they don't know?
I can't wait for the movie. I'm not kidding. As I read this book, I thought it's going to be a movie. It's got to be a great movie when it is, when you do come out.
You look at it and you think, oh, it was phenomenal.
Do you need a third book to come out before you start working on movie rights, or are you already working on movie rights?
Well, we've optioned the first book.
Okay.
And it's getting what you call it's under review at the moment.
Right.
There was a producer.
Under review usually means they're looking for money.
Yeah.
Right.
But he did executive director for Black Hawk Down.
Okay.
And he worked with Jerry Bruckheimer. He worked with all of them. So basically it's under review.
Okay.
And
so
I think somebody eventually will pick it up.
We're looking at 3 separate movies.
It could be a docuseries.
Okay.
And then it could be it's probably a series on Netflix or whoever picks it up.
Okay.
And it'll be like a Peaky Blinders movie. Right. Or like there's a movie just come out last year, Mobland, Tom Hardy.
Right.
And they just had the Golden Globes on Sunday, and they're saying all the people who won the Golden Globes, like Stephen Graham, he won a Golden Globe for Adolescence.
Right.
They're saying he would play me,
Okay.
and Tom Hardy would play me.
There is a resemblance.
And actually, I spoke to, I never told you this, but Tom Hardy was in a hotel last year, and someone was sitting next to him, and I said to him, put him on the phone, and I actually spoke to him. I said, one day you're going to play me in a movie. And he was laughing his head off, and actually we recorded it.
Right.
So I said, where are you? And he was in the Soho house.
Okay.
So I said, I'm going to drop you the book off tomorrow. So I drove to LA, and I signed the book to him.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. One of the other celebrity stories that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I think of all your stories, this one warmed my heart the most, and that was with Farrah Fawcett.
Yeah.
You ended up having a wonderful friendship with her, not just being her butler, but what was supposed to be a temporary gig turned into a wonderful friendship.
Yeah. Well, at the time, her life was tumultuous. She had with Ryan O'Neal.
Right.
And then his life with his children.
Right.
And you could just see that she was lost.
Right.
The education, she had the beautiful house on Mulholland Drive, the lovely Rolls Royce. She had everything. One of the good stories that she asked me to go to a Japanese restaurant with her one night. So I drove her. I got dressed like I was the boyfriend.
Like you were a date, right?
Yeah, it was.
Right.
And we went to a Japanese restaurant in Los Angeles. And she asked me, have you ever had shabby shabby? And I said, what's that? And it was
That's the meat you dip into hot water.
Yeah. And I said, no. And we were sitting there, and everybody in the restaurant was staring at us.
Right.
And she would comment. She used to say to me, you could play James Bond. And I used to laugh, and I said, no, James Bond couldn't do what I've already done what James Bond's done. And we would laugh and joke.
Right. Did any of these people know about your previous life?
No.
No. And if they did, you wouldn't want them to know. Yeah,
no.
Right.
But the greatest thing is that they all embrace me.
Right.
Every one of them embraced me in life.
Right.
And they just seen how warm I was, and
there's a sense of honor to you, and that they read that and pick up on it as well.
Yeah, they wanted to be around me, and I think they were initially an English butler.
Right.
I have an English butler.
Right.
He's the greatest.
There's a charm there. There's
a charm.
There's a certain something that comes with having an English butler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I picked that charm up. I developed it on the QE2. And, you develop that when you're making tips.
Right.
Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, madam.
Yes.
And I always remember when a guy in Beverly Hills said to me, if I ask for something, just please me. I want to be pleased. And I learned that. Whatever they want, just give to them. And don't answer back.
And keep their lives as private as you can. And there's a wonderful passage in the book where you talk about Ryan O'Neal. You hadn't met Ryan O'Neal.
No.
You'd known Farrah Fawcett for a while. You'd never seen Ryan O'Neal.
No.
Yet the very first time that he came to the house, you felt a sense of him being kind of a jealous, possessive guy.
Yeah, he was.
And you left the room. You went to go, you gave them privacy by going to a different room.
That's what you do.
And you heard yelling and screaming. Was he, without revealing too much, was he an abusive kind of boyfriend? Whether verbally or otherwise?
Well, as you see in my book, I never mention anything about what's gone on in their lives.
Right.
I just write about them.
Right.
And I would say I don't have to tell anybody that. I think it's already publicized.
Yeah.
It was already publicized.
Did you feel a desire to defend her, to just kind of break in a little bit?
Yeah, well, he was a boxer.
Right.
He was an amateur boxer.
Right.
And actually, I at the time, I'd boxed myself.
Right.
And I was...
And you were a tough kid from the streets of Liverpool.
Yeah, I was one of the toughest. And I thought sometimes, if he ever said anything to me, I'd just knock him out.
Right.
Yeah, because I trained every day. I trained in Muhammad Ali's gym. I used to go to his gym every day in Santa Monica, and I'd be doing 15 rounds a day, and I thought, but you can't do that, you know. That's not...
You're the butler.
You're the butler.
You're the butler, right.
And yeah, she was absolutely gorgeous. But the thing is, when they had the son, Redmond,
yeah.
and he was addicted
Right.
when he was born.
Yeah.
I was there when she was pregnant at the time, and that kid had a terrible life. His life later on, I think he was arrested for attempted murder.
Right.
And I think that the psychiatrist said that he was insane.
All three of her and
Yeah.
Ryan O'Neal all had substance abuse problems.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for her, she died of cancer at 62, a very young age.
62, yeah.
Were you in contact with her after having worked for her at all?
No. No, the only person I was ever in contact was with the Wiseman estate in Los Angeles and Holmby Hills,
Okay.
where my daughter had got in touch with them. And the guy's name was Frederick Wiseman. He owned Toyota,
Right.
and he owned all the franchises in America,
Right.
and he sold them. And he had $1 billion worth of art in the house. And they invited me back to the home to be a guest on a tour.
Right.
And they asked me to comment on the tour, and I told them that there was a Picasso on the wall, and that's where I hung it one day with Mr. Wiseman.
Right.
That Picasso was worth today 150 million.
Right.
At the time it was worth 75 million, and I had a plan to steal that, but the redemption always kicked in.
Right.
Always kicked in.
And I'm going to go back to Farrah for a moment, because hanging on her wall was an Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol, yeah.
Andy Warhol of her. That
Yeah.
Unbelievably great.
It was over the fireplace.
Right. And that never crossed your mind with her.
No, because as I developed, my brain was developing as I was getting more into the life of Beverly Hills, and I was getting more and more professional,
Right.
more educated, what I should be doing, what I should be doing.
Right.
I was becoming really professional.
The life of a butler was treating you well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I actually met Andy Warhol. He came to Wiseman's and he painted Wiseman.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, he painted Wiseman. It's in Wiseman's gallery.
Okay.
And periodically I do go back. I just heard that it got damaged in the fire. Okay. But I always said that if we could go to Mrs. Wiseman and ask could we borrow the house to do a movie.
Okay. Yeah, what
and
a great idea.
I would be the butler. I would be an older butler, and they could set a scene where a new butler comes in, the likes of Tom Hardy, and he pulls me out of retirement to do a job with him. But then we go back to England to do the job, and I get caught in England, but then I get not guilty again.
I love this imagination.
It's just that imagination. It's brilliant.
Great imagination, great creativity.
Yeah,
I want to, for a moment before we go, I want to talk about Joan Rivers. You mentioned that you met Marlon Brando at Edgar Rosenberg at Joan Rivers' house. I have one story for you. I was doing stand-up comedy in Los Angeles at a place called JP's. A great night. Funny. I thought everything was good. I'm standing at the bar at the end. Had no idea that she was just having dinner, but listened or heard the comedy show, came over, poked me in the chest with her index finger and went, funny. And that was my brush with greatness in Joan Rivers. But I'm curious about Edgar.
Yeah.
Edgar unfortunately committed suicide in 87.
In Philadelphia.
In 1987.
In a room in Philadelphia.
Did you have contact with Joan after that and have a chance to? No?
No, I didn't. Most of my contact was with Edgar, because I think Edgar was a manager.
Yeah.
And you just heard Joan shouting all over the house. Edgar, come here.
He was the butt of all her jokes in her routine.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
But his life, it was so sad about his life that. And then he had Melissa. Melissa was 15 when I met her.
Right.
And
you described her being very charming and very well mannered.
Yes. Yes. And then it's sad that he goes to a room and he leaves these tapes.
Right.
One to Melissa and one to Joan, and then he overdoses.
Right.
And he takes his life.
Right. Was he suffering from?
I think he'd had a heart attack.
Okay.
He'd had a heart attack and he had depression.
Right.
And then, I don't know whether you know, he had scoliosis.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
His body was bent over. He had scoliosis. So it's so sad. And when you look at all these people's lives, and then I look at them, and they were no different from Soho Street, from the gangs that we had.
I think about after I closed the last chapter of this book, which, by the way, without revealing the ending, can I talk about the last chapter for a moment?
Yeah, absolutely.
It takes place in prison.
Yeah.
You go back in time a little bit. It takes place in prison, which led me to believe, and the question was going to be that I was going to ask you, book 3? Well, of course, book 3.
Yeah.
You had to fit in prison.
Yeah.
And you fit in by being smart.
Yeah.
And helping other people with their cases. And that would include members of the Aryan Brotherhood and people that you would normally not associate with.
Yeah, and then, you see how weak they are in prison.
Right.
We never went weak in prison. We became stronger. That's how we won our cases.
Right.
I mean, I had one of the biggest cases in history in Liverpool.
Right.
It was a job that we did, and it was $250,000, and I was framed for that one. Right. I was framed quite a few times.
Could you, now that you've had this incredible life experience on every end of the spectrum, from Liverpool bank robber and gang member and street tough to a fine British butler serving celebrities and refusing to steal from them.
Yes.
Could you be a butler again?
Yes.
You could.
Oh, yeah, there's no two ways about it. Right. Anybody I would work for, and I think I'd do a better job today than what I did because of the experience. Right. The most important thing that was if they had respect.
Right. Right.
If they had respect
right.
for me, and if they let me run the show, because that's what I did. That was my game, is running the show, and I did a beautiful job.
You would lay out a journal of what they should do.
What they should do.
When you weren't there, you always preferred to be not live-in butler, but an outside butler. Why that?
Well, because it's more, you get more freedom, and then if anything goes wrong while you're living in, like the experience with the Weinberg estate,
right,
where in the middle of the night, where she wakes up and she's committing suicide in the Rolls Royce,
right,
in the Truesdale estates, and they own the Kahala Hilton in Hawaii,
right,
and then eventually, she becomes crazy in the house, and all the staff leave, and the chef leaves, and no one can tolerate her. But the kid from the streets of Soho Street, I just used to look at them and go, "Oh yeah, I can handle you." And then eventually, she kills us. She takes a gun and she kills herself in the home.
Any contact with them since?
No.
Okay.
Only her husband. He later on, he let me stay at the hotel with my wife Annette. We stayed with him, and he thanked me. But then I thought, 14 years later, 15, when I told the story, it was about to be told.
I'm looking at the text connect here, and listeners are fascinated by this story and cannot wait for more. Book 3, when can we see book 3 drop? By the way, I need to tell everyone right now, this book number 2, Liverpool Bank Robber to Hollywood Butler, is out now. What is the best way to find it?
They can go on Amazon. They can purchase it on Amazon, and one of the most important things, if you could leave me a nice review in honesty, and what that does is that gives me credibility. You've listened to my story, you've got the book. It's actually, they're comparing the book to Pretty Boy Floyd, John Dillinger, and from all the escapades that I was involved in. I don't think they were involved in these escapades.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
In the third book, there's lots more escapades.
Okay.
But the main story is the diamond heist on the QE2 in the middle of the North Atlantic in a hurricane.
When will the third book drop?
I've just finished it. It's got to be edited by The Guardian in London.
Okay.
And then we'll edit it, we'll get it done, and then we'll get it all read out, and it'll be all black, and the font will be beautiful gold, and it'll be me in my uniform.
Okay. We are so looking forward to that. This was a delightful read.
Thanks.
As I mentioned, I loved the first one. I love the second one even more. I'm not blowing smoke in your face. That is the way it is. Liverpool Bank Robber to Hollywood Butler, Book 2. My Life with Marlon Brando, Farrah Fawcett, and Joan Rivers. And there's so much more than just celebrity butlering here. Terry Mugen, thank you so very much for being here. Let's do this again soon.
Thank you, Ed.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, really appreciate you. 1:51 the time. It's the mornings with, well, it's no longer mornings with Ed. It's the afternoons with Ed, and it's the voice of Laguna.
Fine jewelry. Created